Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tangmen based on novel. So let's start. The White Tiger Duke's personal guards couldn't do much in a battle at this level, and most of those who died on the ground consisted of the White Tiger Duke's personal guards. There were 7 or 8 people hovering amongst the 2 Soul Engineer legions in the sky. These people didn't unleash any attacks, and were just watching the battlefield coldly. They were inside the protective barriers, but Huo Yuhao could still feel how powerful and frightening these people were. Huo Yuhao had seen 3 of them before. They were judges for the Radiant City Elite Soul Engineer Tournament in the Sun Moon Empire's Radiant City, and the person he was most familiar with was this group's leader. Wasn't he the Star Sky Doluo, Yi Yulin, who had given him the Sun Moon Divine Needle back then? At this moment, a Class 9 Sun Moon Divine Needle was hovering above his head. Furthermore, there wasn't just one, there were 2. Huo Yuhao didn't have to ask to faintly guess that the Star Sky Doluo's appearance here probably had something to do with the Sun Moon Divine Needle that he had given the White Tiger Duke back then. At this moment, one of the 2 Sun Moon Divine Needles above his head was likely to be the one that Huo Yuhao had given Dai Hao back then. These formidable individuals, who were some of the strongest soul engineers in the Sun Moon Empire, were undoubtedly holding down the fort here so that they could eradicate whatever resistance there was on the ground. Huo Yuhao took a deep breath, and calmed and steadied himself as much as he could. Even though he was far stronger than he was last time, his strength was still far too small and weak on a battlefield such as this. Huo Yuhao was the only finished product from the Ultimate Soldier plan, and he knew that he had to use every possible resource he could to turn the fight around, and those resources didn't just comprise strength and abilities. Huo Yuhao lowered his altitude and moved his spiritual power towards the Star Luo Empire soldiers. Right now, he wasn't even sure if the White Tiger Duke was still alive. The situation quickly became clear. The Star Luo Empire had less than 2,000 soldiers left. The White Tiger Duke's personal guards made up about 13 to 1,400 of these 2,000 soldiers, and they relied on about 500 to 600 Soul Masters defending with their full strength to barely maintain the current situation. None of these Soul Masters were weak, and some had stronger soul power than the 2 Soul Engineer legions in the sky. Their soul rings sparkled on their bodies, and even the weakest of them had 5 soul rings. The Star Luo Empire's royal family still strongly supported the Northwestern Field Army. This Soul Master Legion comprised the best of the best Soul Masters in the Star Luo Empire. Even though they had lost quite a few people, they were the reason why the White Tiger Duke could still hold back the Sun Moon Empire's Soul Engineer legions so that the Northwestern Field Army could retreat. However, these Soul Masters' faces were filled with fatigue, and everyone wore solemn and grave expressions. None of them would be afraid of the Soul Engineers in the sky if they were 1 against 1, and there were even 4 titled Doluo among these Soul Masters. The White Tiger Duke was still among this group, but he seemed like he was in a bad state. Half his body was scorched black, and he was supporting himself with a yard-long knife as he commanded the battle. He had sustained severe injuries. The other 3 titled Doluo spread out and continuously cooperated with other Soul Masters to defend the group. They seemed like they had expended a lot of their soul power as well. The White Tiger Duke was panting with heavy breaths. His eyes were still as resolute as ever, but they were already flowing with determination and a grim resignation to fate. He had been suppressed on this hill for almost 2 hours, and reinforcements couldn't possibly come for them, no matter what happened. Even though the Sun Moon Empire's army had entered the Mingdo mountain range, the White Tiger Duke and his army would probably be eliminated today, if he didn't make a decision soon. Dai Hao lowered his voice and growled, "Invite the Big Dipper Doluo here." Dai Hao's eldest son was standing beside him. Dai Yueheng, who had graduated from Shrek Academy. 5 years had gone by, and Dai Yueheng was now a powerful 7-ringed soul sage. He was just 25 years old, and he was definitely considered an elite among the younger generation. He could represent Shrek Academy in battle as their vice-team leader back then, which sufficiently displayed his talent. Yes. Dai Yueheng acknowledged, and he quickly called an elderly man, who was in his 70s, over to Dai Hao. This man was one of the 3 powerful titled Doluo in the Soul Masters formation. This elderly man came beside Dai Hao, and suddenly arched his eyebrows as he pointed towards the sky with his right hand. A silver-white beam of light surged into the sky, and this light beam webbed out as it transformed into an enormous umbrella more than 50 meters in diameter. This umbrella blocked the soul rays and whatnot that were raining from the sky, and some of these attacks even included attacks from Class 8 Soul Engineers, These soul rays and soul cannons didn't just land on the umbrella's surface. These attacks seemed like they were immediately dispelled when they touched the silver-white radiance on the umbrella's surface, and they were parsed and consumed by countless thin and fine spaces in the air. Therefore, no explosions rang out. This elderly man was the commander of the Star Luo Empire's first Soul Master Legion, the Big Dipper Doluo, Xian Ji. He was one of the titled Doluo, who belonged to the older generation, within the Star Luo Empire, and his real name had long been forgotten, so he had always been called Xian Ji. His soul power stood at rank 94, and his martial soul was a Big Dipper umbrella. He was very good friends with the last generation's White Tiger Duke, and one generation older than Dai Hao. The previous generation's White Tiger Duke had pleaded with him to protect the White Tiger lineage, and he was one of the strongest core forces in the White Tiger Duke's camp. Duke. The Big Dipper Doluo's face looked a little pale, as he blocked the attacks that rained down from the sky. His expression was also extremely grave at this moment. The Sun Moon Empire had clearly planned and schemed their sudden ambush for a long time, and the ferocity of their assault exceeded everyone's expectations. The Sun Moon Empire didn't send their forces swiftly into the Star Luo Empire. Instead, they sent their strongest fighting strength against the White Tiger Duke, Dai Hao, which clearly meant that they had planned this. The White Tiger Duke was the Northwestern Field Army's marshal, and he was also the mainstay for the Star Luo Empire's western defense perimeter. Once he died, the Northwestern and the Western Field Armies would be dealt an unprecedentedly large psychological blow. This result would be exceptionally beneficial for what the Sun Moon Empire wanted to do next. Furthermore, Dai Hao wasn't the invaders' only target. They were also going after the Star Luo Empire's first Soul Master Legion, because this legion represented 10% of the Soul Masters that the royal family controlled. Soul Masters were inferior to Soul Engineers on the battlefield if Legion fought against Legion, but if these Soul Masters were used or deployed in another fashion, their impact and force would be comparable to that of a Soul Engineer Legion. The first Soul Master Legion was also the strongest legion overall amongst the Star Luo Empire's 10 great Soul Master Legions. From the sudden bombardment from those Class 9 stationary Soul Cannons until now, the first Soul Master Legion had lost about 1/3 of their Soul Masters. This painful price was paid in exchange for an opportunity for the remnants of the Northwestern Field Army to retreat. The Big Dipper Doluo had requested the White Tiger Duke to lead his army in retreat a long time ago, but Dai Hao had insisted otherwise. He led his personal guards to cover the rear, and worked together with the Big Dipper Doluo's first Soul Master Legion to do so. If he hadn't done that, the first Soul Master Legion would probably have been destroyed by now. However, if their current circumstances were allowed to persist, they would still be unable to escape their fate of eradication and complete defeat. Duke. The Big Dipper Doluo came beside the White Tiger Duke, and heaved a faint sigh when he saw the wounds all over Dai Hao's body. The White Tiger Duke's most severe injury came from the Star Sky Doluo's Sun Moon Divine Needle. Initially, the White Tiger Duke had had a Sun Moon Divine Needle of his own, but the Star Sky Doluo took his Sun Moon Divine Needle away as soon as he appeared, and even used the Sun Moon Divine Needle to heavily wound Dai Hao. If the White Tiger Duke hadn't had several defensive soul tools on his body, and if not for the fact that his martial soul was powerful, he would probably have died from that hit. Dai Hao raised his hand, and a layer of white light was released from his hand. This white light encompassed himself and the Big Dipper Doluo within it. Dai Hao's eyes were still as bright as ever. He clenched his fists tightly and said, "Uncle Xianji, we can't continue on like this. We can't escape our fate of losing every single soldier if this goes on." The Big Dipper Doluo stared at him and said, "What are your plans?" Dai Hao lowered his voice and said, "I am their target. After a while, I will order my personal guards to charge out and scatter in all directions to create an illusion that I want to charge out. I will run by myself towards the north to attract the enemy's attention. You will take the first Soul Master Legion and break through towards the southeast. Run as far as you can, and preserve as much life and strength as possible. Preserve your strength, so that we can retaliate in the future." No, the Big Dipper Doluo's expression changed drastically as he retorted angrily, "What nonsense are you spouting? Your father has given me the task of protecting the White Tiger's lineage. How can I just leave you behind and run away? If I did that, how could I face your father in the afterlife?" Dai Hao said calmly, "Uncle Xianji, now is not the time to talk about sentiments. My decision is for my empire's future. It's meaningless if everyone dies in battle here today, and right now, there's no way we can deal any conceivable or effective damage to those fellows in the sky. Their collective defensive soul tool formation is too powerful, and even transcendent Doluo probably couldn't break through. You have to go, and you'll take Yueheng away. He will take over as the White Tiger Duke after my death. Time is of the essence, Uncle Xianji, so you must listen to me. Only I will remain to draw their attention, and create an opportunity for you guys to survive. It won't be that easy for them to kill me either, and I will try my best to survive as long as a chance exists. We can't unleash our full strength if we stay together. The Big Dipper Doluo's chest puffed heavily in and out. He understood in his heart that the White Tiger Duke's solution was the best one for now. But how could he abandon Dai Hao when he had watched Dai Hao grow up since he was a child? Uncle Xianji, please make a move while everyone still has soul power. The plan has been decided, and I will be at ease handing Yueheng over to you. He dispelled the soundproofing barrier that he had just released as he spoke. He turned to Dai Yueheng beside as he lowered his voice and said, "You will follow Grandpa Xianji, and we will break out in 2 different groups. You will listen to Grandpa Xianji's orders after breaking out. Do you understand?" Dai Yueheng hesitated for a moment and asked, "What about you, father?" Dai Hao muttered coldly, "I will break out from another direction. Only in this way will we have a higher chance of breaking out. Go, it's up to you now, Uncle Xianji." The Big Dipper Doluo heaved a long sigh as he stared at the deep determination and resolve in Dai Hao's eyes. He grabbed Dai Yueheng as he turned and left. There couldn't be any more delays. Every soul engineer of the 2 large soul engineering legions of the Sun Moon Empire brought along milk bottles that corresponded to their rank, each having at least 2. However, the Star Luo Empire's Soul Master Legions weren't equipped in the same way. Among the 3 empires of the Doluo continent, the Star Luo Empire was the most traditional. They were the ones who disregarded the development of soul tools the most. As there were too many traditional sects in the Star Luo Empire that discriminated against soul tools, the imperial family wasn't able to advertise the use of soul tools on a large scale. It was only after Princess Jojo interacted with the Tang sect that they decided to start using Zhuge divine crossbow cannons. It was just that the Sun Moon Empire had managed to completely destroy the cannons on the western border before they could even unleash their full strength. Only some of the cannons in the military camp were able to have some effect. Seeing that the Big Dipper Doluo was about to take Dai Yueheng away, the White Tiger Duke revealed a gentle expression on his determined face. While Dai Yueheng was a slightly haughty person, he had become much better after following his father for a few years. Furthermore, his cultivation talent even exceeded the White Tiger Duke's. With both Dai Yueheng and Dai Huobin around, the White Tiger Duke's lineage would definitely last beyond him. However, whether this national crisis would. Dai Hao lifted his head again, after sighing silently. He had already made his decision. He could only make a choice now, and it was only by sacrificing his White Tiger bodyguards and himself that he could save those soul masters. War was brutal. As a commander, he had to be decisive. "White Tigers, listen to my command," Dai Hao shouted. If the first Soul Master Legion retreated, his defense here would immediately disappear. When that happened, his White Tiger bodyguards were likely to be killed by the attacks of the aerial soul tools, even though their individual fighting strength could compare to either a 1 or 2-ringed Soul Master. As he clenched his lips tightly, Dai Hao took a deep look at all the brothers and comrades that had followed him for years. He tried his best to hold back his tears. After this short half a day's worth of war, there were only slightly more than 1,000 of his White Tiger bodyguards left. "My brothers, I've let all of you down." All the commanders among the White Tiger bodyguards quickly gathered in front of Dai Hao to receive their orders. These commanders were also soul masters, and their cultivations were quite high, too. Dai Hao said, "Later, we'll need to cover the first Soul Master Legion as they retreat towards the north." One of the leading commanders asked, "Marshal, are we creating a diversion?" "Yes." Dai Hao nodded. This bunch of commanders kneeled down on the ground at the same time. "Marshal, please retreat along with the first Soul Master Legion." They understood the White Tiger Duke very well. They could naturally see the determined look in his eyes. Dai Hao smiled and lifted his hands. A strong force lifted these loyal commanders to their feet. "Do you think those guys from the Sun Moon Empire will let me off if I'm among those who are trying to escape? More people can escape if I'm the bait. White Tigers like us cannot be cowardly, given that we lead the Northwestern Field Army. Are all of you willing to die with me?" "Marshal!" All of them exclaimed sorrowfully. They weren't afraid of death, and were willing to sacrifice their lives for the White Tiger Duke. It was just that they couldn't watch helplessly as the White Tiger Duke perished along with them. We don't have much time left. This is an order. All of you should understand that no one can change my course after I've made up my mind. Go and prepare. After I make my move, all of you shall follow me. Quick! This bunch of commanders held back their tears as they turned around. Dai Hao's tears finally flowed as he watched their backs. He lifted his head to look into the sky and muttered to himself as he watched the soul rays that were coming from the sky, "If there's a next life, I'm willing to be brothers with all of you again. I'm sorry that I can't protect all of you." He clenched his fist, and the veins on his arms became very obvious. His aura started to rise rapidly, and 9 soul rings rose from beneath his feet. The aura that he released was extremely wild, and even the Star Sky Doluo Yi Yulin and the other strong individuals could sense it clearly. Yi Yulin said coldly, "The White Tiger Duke is going to go all out. Be prepared to unleash all of your strength." As he spoke, his body also shone brightly. A large amount of soul power was poured into his Sun Moon Divine Needle. He only had one goal: kill Dai Hao. As long as this White Tiger Duke was dead, all the defenses on the western side of the Star Luo Empire would be compromised. Of course, he didn't think that the White Tiger Duke's presence could affect the big picture that much either way. Whether it was the Star Luo Empire, the Heavenly Soul Empire, or the Doling Empire, he believed that they were on the cusp of annihilation. This world already belonged to Soul Tools. While these 3 empires had started to realize this in recent years, they were still a little too late. Just as things got tense between both sides and the battle was about to reach its end, a strange aura suddenly filled the entire place. A rose-gold vertical eye suddenly opened in the sky without any warning. It appeared between the 2 soul engineering legions in the sky and the remaining White Tiger bodyguards on the ground. When it appeared, the soul rays that shot towards the ground would instantly be diverted away by some strange force when they came within a 100-meter diameter from it. These soul rays were then unable to pose any threat. Rose-gold sunray patterns slowly spread out. Under the influence of these magical patterns, everything in the area turned weird. The White Tiger Duke heard a familiar voice in his head. "Aren't you going to carry out your plan? What are you waiting for?" When he heard this voice, Dai Hua was first shocked. After this, he immediately recalled something, and revealed a delighted look in his eyes. He shouted, "White Tigers, follow me. First Soul Master Legion, retreat." The White Tiger Duke was the first to move, and he led his bodyguards towards the north. He led the charge, and quickly burst into the distance. He intentionally ran very quickly, and widened the gap between him and his bodyguards. He knew that he was his enemy's most important target. The closer his men were to him, the faster they would die. On the other side, the Big Dipper Doluo was already tearing up. Dai Yueheng, who planned to save his father, led the first Soul Master Legion towards the southeast. Figures rose roughly 5 meters from the ground and flew in that direction using flying-type soul tools they had already prepared. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to protect the White Tiger bodyguards and flee so far. Without the White Tiger bodyguards to burden them now, they were able to flee much more quickly. Dai Hao flew forward with all his speed. Given his abilities as a titled Doluo, his speed was very high even though he wasn't an agility-type soul master. However, he found it very strange that the soul engineers in the sky didn't unleash their all-out attack against him even though he was fleeing at top speed. Even if the Star Sky Doluo's attack could cover a huge region, was he really so self-confident? However, the White Tiger Duke didn't know that all the soul engineers, including Yi Yulin, were seeing things quite differently. Just as Dai Hao heard that mysterious voice, the Star Sky Doluo and every soul engineer heard that mysterious voice as well. "I come from the Holy Ghost Church, and I was tasked by my leader to assist all of you. I'll use a secret technique to freeze all of them below. After that, you can attack them with all your might and destroy them." A cold voice sounded in everyone's head. Even the Star Sky Doluo was moved, even though he was normally a proud person. They were in a defensive formation formed by several hundred soul engineers working together. Even a transcendent Doluo wouldn't be able to breach this formation easily. It was a combination of the strength of a few hundred soul engineers. Although this huge protective barrier wasn't completely impenetrable, it should be able to resist a few attacks from an ultimate Doluo. This was also the strongest trump card of the 5 soul engineering legions of the Sun Moon Empire's hand that protects the nation. However, the person with that mysterious voice was still able to transmit his spiritual intent even under such conditions. It showed how strong his spiritual power was. Furthermore, Yu Yulin felt a very familiar feeling when he heard that voice, although he couldn't recall where he had heard it before. However, he still chose to believe that mysterious voice as he had no other choice, given what happened below. The light released from the scarlet gold vertical eye engulfed the entire area below, and the entire White Tiger Duke's remaining army was hugely affected. All of them were disoriented, and their defense against aerial attacks weakened significantly. Yu Yulin wouldn't forego such an opportunity. He immediately pointed his right hand downward and shouted, "All-out attack." Soul rays immediately rained down. His Sun Moon Divine Needle that had just been fully charged unleashed a streak of gold-and-silver light towards Dai Hao, who had exposed himself. Suddenly, there was a bloody scene below. Along with the coordination of the rose-gold vertical eye, there was a massacre. Patches of bloody light shone, and lives were quickly taken. Only the defenses of some soul masters were still effective. Even so, they were still completely annihilated after some time. After Yu Yulin unleashed his Sun Moon Divine Needle, he immediately retrieved a milk bottle to recover his soul power. While his Sun Moon Divine Needle was strong, it greatly drained his soul power. He had already used it twice today. As a soul engineer, he knew that he had to keep himself at his peak in enemy territory. He didn't continue attacking. The White Tiger Duke would definitely be unable to hold on for much longer. As he recovered his soul power, Yu Yulin monitored the situation beneath him. When he saw the White Tiger bodyguards and the soul engineers of the Star Luo Empire's first Soul Master Legion being killed, he felt something wasn't right. The vertical eye had appeared at a very weird time. If he was sent by His Majesty, why didn't he show himself immediately? Furthermore, why didn't he discuss it with us before he appeared? After he thought of all this, Yu Yulin was suddenly shocked. He shouted, "Stop!" His voice was transmitted through a sound-amplifying soul tool. The soul engineers from the Terraclaw Soul Engineering Legion and Evil Tyrant Soul Engineering Legion could hear him clearly. Soul Engineer Legions were very disciplined. They needed to coordinate extremely well within their ranks in order to unleash their greatest fighting strength. All the Soul Engineers stopped instantly, and the entire place went silent. Things didn't seem amiss below. Tragic screams and sorrowful cries could be heard. The remaining White Tiger bodyguards quickly gathered. The White Tiger Duke had already disappeared under the attack of Yu Yulin's Sun Moon Divine Needle, and there was only a huge crater in the ground where he had been standing. Everything seemed to be very normal. However, Yu Yulin felt that something wasn't right. "Remove the barrier," Yu Yulin ordered. The two Soul Engineer Legions trusted him. After all, it seemed like everything had been decided. It wasn't possible for those on the ground to attack them or fly into the sky. The two huge protective soul barriers were quickly retracted and turned into streaks of lights that fused with the soul tool behind every soul engineer's back. When these protective soul barriers were retracted, Yu Yulin's expression suddenly changed, and he shouted furiously, "No. It's an illusion." Yes, he could immediately sense intense spiritual undulations the moment the barriers were retracted. If not for the fact that he was wary, he might not have noticed these spiritual undulations at all. However, these spiritual undulations weren't aimed at the ground. They were clearly engulfing the airborne legions. If that person earlier was helping them, why would his spiritual undulations be engulfing them? While a joint protective soul barrier was very strong, there was still one problem: it completely isolated the outside world. As a result, they weren't able to sense the strong spiritual undulations earlier. Once he discovered that something was wrong, Yu Yulin couldn't be bothered with conserving his soul power anymore. His Sun Moon Divine Needle immediately turned and faced the rose-gold vertical eye before firing an intense beam of light. This beam of gold-and-silver light immediately turned illusory and disappeared when it got close to that rose-gold vertical eye. Initially, everything within the view of all the soul engineers completely changed. There was no longer a bloody scene below. Yes, there were many holes that were blown apart in the ground. However, there wasn't even a single corpse. The first Soul Master Legion had already vanished. After such a long time, they had already flown more than 5 kilometers with their flying-type soul tools. The White Tiger bodyguards had also disappeared from their line of sight. The White Tiger Duke was nowhere to be seen. What left Yu Yulin even more depressed was that he didn't know who had released the rose-gold vertical eye. Given how strong that illusory soul skill was, it had to be at least the work of a titled Doloor, who possessed great spiritual power. Chase them. The White Tiger Duke won't forsake his bodyguards. He must be over there. As he spoke, Yulin quickly activated his flying-type soul tool and chased after the White Tiger bodyguards. Just as Yulin and the others were attacking with all their strength, Dai Hao discovered that something was wrong. He could hear tremendous booms behind him. As he turned, he saw the countless soul rays that were raining down on them, but these soul rays were still striking the original spot they were in. They didn't chase after them. The rose gold vertical eye was still flashing brightly in the sky. This was. His doubt instantly turned into extreme delight. He understood that someone must have used some method to misdirect the two soul engineer legions, and made them think that they were still in their original spot. When he heard that voice earlier, he could tell that it was a familiar one. It sounded like the guy who gave him the Sun Moon Divine Needle before. After he realized all this, Dai Hao didn't bother running far away anymore. If he wanted to escape, he had a lot of opportunities to do so right now. No matter how strong Yi Yulin was or how magical his Sun Moon Divine Needle was, it wasn't a problem for him to escape the detection range of Yi Yulin's Sun Moon Divine Needle given his abilities. However, he still turned back without any hesitation. This was because he had to leave with his brothers even if he wanted to escape. They would either survive together or die together. Dai Hao returned to his White Tiger bodyguards and shouted at the top of his voice, "White Tigers, run with all your might. Don't care about what's happening behind. This is our only chance." He just hoped that the powerful individual would be able to delay Yi Yulin a bit longer. While he knew that it would be very difficult to escape with so many White Tiger bodyguards, he had no choice right now. At this moment, he saw a beam of light penetrating the rose gold vertical eye in the distance, and the aerial attacks on the ground had already ceased. After this, he heard Yi Yulin roaring furiously before the two soul engineering legions attacked again. They flew extremely quickly towards them. Are we still unable to escape in the end? Dai Hao revealed a lost look in his eyes. However, this was already the best result they could achieve. At least those from the first Soul Master Legion had left. There was still a glimmer of hope for the Empire. Dai Hao wasn't cowardly, and there was a determined look in his eyes. Just as he was about to fly up to fight his enemies, that mysterious voice sounded again. In addition, his voice now reached every White Tiger bodyguard. White Tigers, continued to run forward and enter the black doors in front of you. When you enter, don't act recklessly no matter what you see. This is your only chance to survive. Quick! Or else it'll be too late. At the end, that voice sounded very anxious. Dai Hao was stunned and quickly turned around. He was shocked to discover that several pitch-black doors had risen behind him. There were 12 of these doors. Every door was around 3 meters wide and 10 meters tall. They gave off a very mysterious feeling. The magnificent demonic patterns around these doors revealed a sinister aura. At this point, Dai Hao's decisiveness was revealed. He didn't hesitate and immediately gave an order. Enter those black doors in order. There must be no confusion. The best way to enter those doors wasn't just by running towards them. The White Tiger bodyguards had to adopt a strict and neat formation. The White Tiger bodyguards were already prepared to die. However, how could they not be delightfully surprised now that they were offered a glimmer of hope? If they could live, who would be willing to die? Instantly, the fit White Tiger bodyguards sprinted towards those 12 black doors. However, they tried their best to maintain their formation as they charged, and weren't messy as they made their escape. Dai Hao didn't leave. He rose into the sky. He had already calculated very clearly that during this short period of time they were offered, his White Tiger bodyguards would be within the attacking range of the two Soul Engineering Legions before they entered the black doors. He was not going to leave until the last White Tiger bodyguard was safe. How could the White Tiger Duke be ordinary, given that his subordinates were willing to risk their lives for him? He heard a sigh and subconsciously turned his head to one side. He only saw a black figure floating not far away from him. This person was completely covered in black, and he was even wearing headgear that concealed his appearance. From his body shape, it seemed like he was a slender man. White Tiger Duke, why aren't you leaving? This man in black had evidently altered his voice. He sounded low-pitched and hoarse right now. Dai Hao replied, I've never forsaken any soldier under me. Even if we have to retreat, I have to be the last man. The man in black asked, don't you think that's very foolish? You can only protect the lives of more citizens of the Sun Moon Empire if you are alive. Dai Hao laughed. His laughter sounded very free and easy. Of course I know how foolish it is. However, this is what white tigers believe in. Even if I'm foolish, I have to stay true to this belief. I have descendants, so what if I die? Thank you, sir. You must be the one helping us. You must be the same guy from before, am I right? The man in black remained silent for a moment before answering, are you really planning to be the last to leave? Yes. Dai Hao answered his question, and his 9 soul rings flashed. All right, I'll stay with you, then. The man in black sounded like he was in a bit of a dilemma. However, he also sounded very relieved when he finished speaking. Sir, you don't have to do this. You've already helped us enough. Stop talking nonsense and prepare to receive our enemies. I hope that your subordinates can run faster. As he spoke, the man in black vanished into thin air. After a few seconds, a rose-gold vertical eye appeared 1,000 meters away in mid-air, and blocked the advance of the Soul Engineer legions. Initially, Yi Yulin could have fired his Sun Moon Divine Needle immediately, as Dai Hao was within range. However, he was greatly drained after firing his Sun Moon Divine Needle twice. He had already started preparing other soul tools, which were still very threatening in his hands. This video will end here.